Welcome back to Taekwondo, bro. Today I'm working hard at the gym on the punching bags. As you can see, it's super crowded in there. I'm sharing the room with a total of 0 other people at the moment. So we're going to be focusing a lot on this punching bag here and how it's a little bit different than training in the air. So this is like a 20-minute video, so I'm not going to be talking non-stop. I'll just be dropping some tips about what I'm doing, why I'm doing some stuff, and then, hopefully we can get some cool things out of it. So right now I'm working on the cross behind sidekick. Now when you're on a punching bag like this, it's pretty heavy, right? So it's a great way to practice locking out your sidekick. When you're hitting a human, they're pretty heavy. So they're not going to move back as easily as one of those wave masters sometimes whenever you're one of those kicking shields. So you need to practice pushing through a little bit. How I like to envision it is that you're kicking 2 inches in pad. So instead of aiming for the surface, I want you to aim into it. That way you're going to push through. So for this section right here, I'm kind of going more freestyle, working on just some punching, some kicking, nothing particular right now. So I'm going to let it play out for a little bit, let the music get a little bit louder, and I'll drop some more tips in probably a couple seconds. So just watch my footwork here, see what I'm doing. So I actually recorded this with the little breaks and dialogue, and I watched it back. I kind of didn't like it. I felt like it was a little bit too empty. So I'm out here again, just re-recording it. Well, parts of it. Most of it's going to be the original audio. And one thing I've been working on, especially this training session, was kind of getting a little looser. Where in the past, they kind of taught us to attack in a very strong, move quick, but they didn't really teach us to be very loose. So I'm kind of just trying to get a little more supple, and that's like a nice way to improve your technique, in my opinion. Of course, overall, there's no problem with having like super strong techniques. You should actually want super strong and super powerful, but you also want to be able to move, loose at the same time. So one thing I notice when I'm training is that everyone always says your power comes from your hips, power comes from your stance, right? Well, they're not all joking, they're actually talking the truth here. So when you're hitting targets, having a good stance is super important, because if you don't have a good base, you can't really generate any force. Now, just saying that, you're really not going to get it until you start practicing, right? So if you were to get on this punching bag here, which is pretty heavy, and start throwing some kicks and punches, you're going to feel how if you're just throwing them from your arms, or you're just throwing a kick from like a really poor stance, you're not going to get that much impact out of it. So watch my stance. I'm usually in a front stance here, kind of bouncing around. Maybe I'll shift into a little bit of a back stance for some of it. But you'll notice that I'm not throwing techniques just standing up. My knee is always bent, and I'm always turning my hips into it, because that's where you get the real power, right? Especially with kicks. Even in punches, look, with a back fist, it's not just the arm. You're whipping your whole body. And then same thing with a cross punch. You can see me twist forward, get my whole body involved. And with a hook, it's super obvious. You're twisting your whole mass into it. And then also one thing I'm doing is, you see I'm throwing like an overhand right or overhand left, sometimes getting off the center line, just moving my head. I've seen that done a lot of the time. It's not something we usually do in Taekwondo, but I've been kind of practicing it a little bit on my own. The reason you do that is so you can throw the punch and then not get hit in the head. One important aspect of the sidekick, whether it be long or instant, and it's pretty frequently forgotten, is that you see I'm sliding, right? So look at me. I chamber, I lift up, and then I slide on my back foot. It gives me like a couple inches more room, a little bit more momentum. You don't always need to do it, but you will typically see me do it. Now what's important is that when you're practicing in the dojo, right, you usually don't have shoes on. Now, when you put shoes on, you have those rubber grips, it kind of changes it up a little bit. So what's really cool about this is I'm practicing all this different type of sliding and then moving around with realistic footwear, and it is a little different, but you do get used to it pretty quickly. Just like if you only throw kicks with no shoes on, and then you start throwing kicks with them on, you're going to feel like a big difference, right? So over the summer, we couldn't go train inside, right? So we were doing Taekwondo classes out in the park, and we all had shoes on for this. And I gotta say, training with shoes on, it makes it a little bit different. It makes your chambers more important, and it makes the way you set up the kick more, because you have more weight on it, and if you're not treating it the right way, it's just going to slow you down. But eventually, maybe kind of like with more weight on it, you just get more used to it, and then you put on either really light shoes or just no shoes, and then you feel like your legs don't weigh anything. So that's something really cool. So if you want to practice kicking, and one way to do it is just practice with shoes on. I mean, one, it's pretty realistic. You're going to have shoes on most of the time, right? You're not going to be walking around barefoot most of the time. And then two, it's going to make your normal barefoot kicking even faster. So I think it's a win-win. Another thing I learned from training outside, and specifically with the shoes on, in the past I had trained with them a little bit, but for those months that I was doing it, that was the only thing I was doing for Taekwondo. You realize that certain shoes just behave differently when you're trying to kick in them. Like, for example, I have these like orange running shoes. They're very lightweight, but the problem with them is that they're very flimsy. So if you start, juking side to side or, stepping back and forth, there's no side support, so the sole will actually move a little bit. And those shoes, it's not the end of the world. You can still throw kicks and stuff in them, but you'd have to be at least a little aware of that. And then I had these other shoes where it was a very different problem, is that they were kind of heavier, but they were still somewhat low-ankled compared to like basketball shoes. So if they weren't tied on super tight, they could actually like move a little bit as you're kicking. So these are things that really don't matter that much, but they're just little things you pick up the more time you train with no shoes on. So here's a tip when you're practicing your long side kick, right? You don't want to throw a kick and then just drop your foot, right? So let's pretend you have an amazing chamber, but then you kick and you drop it down, right? One, you're going to be more susceptible to getting your leg grabbed, swept, thrown. And then two, it's slower. So what you want to do is you want to rechamber right away. So with the long side kick, you have a lot of distance to cover, right? So the first thing you should focus on doing is pulling that knee back, kind of just going right reverse as quick as you can. Some people, they kind of forget about it. They go kick, and then they turn the brains off. So you don't want to be turning your brain off right after you kick, right? So pull it back in that stance as quick as you can. On top of the benefit of not getting your leg grabbed, another benefit of rechambering is that it's faster. So if you want to pull your leg back, just straight down, yeah, you're running the risk of getting grabbed. But also, you're going to have to drop your leg and then pull it back right away. If you rechamber it quickly and then drop it and maybe do another kick, it is just faster. So you're gaining that speed advantage too. And then also for certain techniques, you need to rechamber to do them right. So something like a double instant side kick. So you take your front foot and you go side kick, side kick. That's something I use a lot to keep distance. So I'll hit them the first time with it, I'll rechamber, and then they'll try to come back in, and then I'll hit them again. So just to keep the distance on them. So these are some other ways that you can use the rechamber to make your kicking better. Okay, so here I'm really focusing more on the thrusting kind of push aspect of a side kick, right? So normally, yeah, you hit with the heel, and that gives a lot of snap energy. But what I'm doing here is I'm starting pretty far away from the bag and trying to use as much of my momentum as I can to push it, right? So you can see how much it's moving, tending to kick it on the return trip, trying to negate some of that momentum. But what I'm doing here is look where I chamber, you'll see more of that motion, that where I slide on my back foot. That lets you move a little bit forward, and in cases like this where you're trying to get a lot of forward momentum, that slide that you're doing really helps, because if I didn't have that slide, I would not have any of that momentum. My only power would be coming from my leg extending forward, which is, yeah, that's still a full kick. It's a lot of power. But when you slide forward, you're just giving yourself that much more momentum. So instead of your foot kicking forward, now your whole body is moving forward at like a certain speed, and then your foot is just adding to it. So it's just giving you that little boost that you need, either to push the opponent back super far or just hit super far, especially with braking too. This will help you break some boards. So if you're practicing your turnaround sidekick or your turning side, and you kind of feel like you're not generating a lot of power, remember, it's not the spinning sidekick, right? So look where I'm setting up, how many feet away I am before I kick, and then as I turn, I'm moving forward. So you know how like a tank can kind of turn on its axis, right? It can turn around without moving forward. We're not doing that. Instead, I want you to think like you're stepping backwards, but you're moving forward as you turn and not spinning. So just watch it, and then it gives you a lot more momentum and gives you some more forward reach. Now, if you're doing like a really close range turnaround sidekick, you wouldn't be doing that forward motion. You might actually be doing a backwards motion just to give yourself more space, or you might not even do any motion. You might just spin on your axis. But it really depends on what your target is. Now, that takes a lot of training, especially if you feel like you're throwing this kick and you're getting crunched up and you're just too close to throw it. Try, instead of moving forward, try to spin and move backwards at the same time. That's a great thing to do if someone's rushing towards you. And then vice versa, if they're backing away from you, try to put as much forward momentum as you can to cover as much ground as you can. This just takes a lot of practice. And then, when I was training, I used to mess up a lot. I would throw a turnaround sidekick, and then I would barely get my foot like unchambered by the time I hit the target. It just, you gotta get used to throwing it at the right range. The distance control is actually one of those things that makes Taekwondo fighters and karate fighters like really effective. That's what their style like of an outfighter. So an outfighter is someone who likes to fight from a distance, and they'll try to control the distance either through motion or through picking you off right when you move in. So these are the type of people who are fast on their feet. They kind of like to, you'll see them going for a little flurry of techniques, back off, and maybe when the opponent tries to attack them, they'll move and counter, or they'll just throw like an instant kick just to stop them. So if you're in a style like that, where it's like a striking style, like a Taekwondo or karate, that's something you really want to get down on. That's going to be your main weapon in like sparring with your own style and against any other styles, because that is like the main advantage. You have that long distance ability to pick somebody off right when they're trying to move in. So just remember, that is the goal here. So your goal with Taekwondo is to control distance and then use that to control the fight. So the switch foot then turn around sidekick is something that you'll see occasionally. It's a way to fake out the opponent, right? So as you see, I'm going to switch my feet, and then I hesitate a little bit, and then I do a turnaround sidekick. Or you could just go in for a straight turnaround sidekick. So what I mean by that is, pretend I got my left foot in front, right? I switch my feet to have my right foot in front. I hesitate for just a second, and then I do a turnaround sidekick. So this will just mess with the timing of it. Of course, be careful. You don't want to just be caught off guard. Like, say you just turn and then you get hit by a punch. You gotta know when to throw fakes and when not to throw fakes. And then also, you gotta gauge your opponent too. Like, if they're always reacting in a very specific way to a turnaround sidekick, you gotta use that to your advantage. So, let's say they're really good at pivoting off to the side, right? Every time you throw a turnaround sidekick at this person, they dash off to the left or dash off to the right, and they get out of the way. So what you might want to do is that you rotate 180 degrees, freeze for a second. As they start moving in a direction, then you throw your turning sidekick in that direction. You will catch them right as they land from their little motion, and they're just not going to be able to move. But let's say you're sparring and you want to learn how to do this. I would say mix in like 2 or 3 turnaround sidekicks and then see how your opponent reacts. If they're not reacting and you're hitting them, just keep going, right? But if they're moving a lot off to the side, then use this trick. Rotate, wait a second, and then kick them. You'll see which way they go. You just got to make that call, and then you hit a good shot on them. Just remember, when you're doing all these types of different fakes and mix-ups, you have to build up to them. You can't just start off a sparring match with it, especially if it's someone you haven't sparred before, because these things work when you learn somebody's reactions or you condition them to react a certain way. So if every time I throw a jab, someone moves to the left, now you're going to start to think, what can I do with this knowledge? You don't want to just start off because they're not going to react the right way and you're just leaving yourself open. So that is the key part of why in a sparring match in the beginning, everyone starts off a little more conservative. They don't really do that much. It's because they're still learning the patterns. So as someone who's done Taekwondo and Karate, you spend a lot of time doing kicks and different attacks. Sometimes it's important to just go back to the basics, because the first thing you'll learn in a lot of martial arts is punching, and then as time goes on, sometimes it gets a little bit, outdone by some of the fancier techniques. So what I'm doing here is I'm just going to spend a couple minutes working on really simple punches, just jab, cross, a couple hooks, maybe a few uppercuts, and just really focus on getting better at that technique. And that's something you can do too. So remember, even though you can do like a 540 tornado kick or maybe a jump turnaround side kick, doesn't mean you just stop practicing the basics, right? The basics are just as important as the fancy kicks, so you're going to make sure you're good at those just as much as you're good at doing any type of pinwheel or something like that, right? So that's important. Practice all your techniques, not just the super fancy ones. But that's not to say that there's no use for the more fancy techniques, because there really is. Like, some people would consider a jump turning sidekick to be outside of like what's usable, but it really is pretty usable, especially once you learn what it's for. So a jump turning sidekick, a lot of the times it's kind of more of a counter technique. So you're playing the distance game, you see someone's coming in on you. For example, I see somebody, they like to they'll throw like an instant like slide round kick, so they'll slide in, that's how they get close, and then they'll throw some punches at me. If I know that that's how they like to attack, if I see them start moving, I might just go jump in the air and do a turnaround side kick. So as they come into me, which I know they're going to do just off building up, I'll hit them with that kick. So a lot of kicks, they have a purpose. Now obviously doing like a 720 roundhouse kick, it's going to be pretty hard to find like an actual use for that one, besides just showing off like really good technique and whatnot. But a lot of techniques, you can build up to it, but you're not going to get the chance to use them if you don't have good basics. So always have good basics first, then you can worry about the crazy stuff later. So I'm just going to finish up with a couple of these punches, and then I'm going to get into a little bit of the stretching warm-up. So, let me know down below in the comments, would you rather me make these videos chronologically, where I just show them in 100% straight order? Because what's coming next is the warm-up. Now I do these warm-ups in the beginning, so what I'll do is I'll do a little bit of punching, right? And then I will put the stretches in, and then I'll get ready to throw some kicks, right? Now, would you rather that I show the video, let's see, warm-up, stretching, kicks, or would you rather just see kind of the warm-up striking into the other striking and then into the stretches? Let me know down below in the comments which you'd rather have, because in this video, what I did is I just moved the stretches to the end, kind of just to give more continuous flow into the striking. But if you like, I can put the stretching in its normal, like chronological order next time I do one of these videos, so then you can see the normal flow, so you can copy the exact order. So what I mean is right now, I'm just practicing, I'm just stretching, not really practicing anything. It's kind of harder with the boxing gloves because you can't grab anything, right? But I'm warming up the shoulders because you'll be throwing a lot of punches. I was also stretching out the hamstrings before, and this is also an important time to kind of just think about what you're going to do next. So maybe, warm up, throw like maybe 50 punches, 20 kicks, something like that, just to get the heart pumping. Sit down, stretch out, and be like, okay, today I want to do a side kick, or today I'm going to practice my turning kicks, so then you know what you're going to do next, right? This is a super important stretch to do, because you're not only stretching out your hamstring, but also a little bit, I'm not sure exactly what tendon it is, but it's on the front where your quad is, right? On the upper part of your quad. For me, my right side is always a little bit tighter, so when I throw like a left front kick super high up, if I don't stretch out, I kind of feel more of a pull on the right side. So this is one way to get rid of that. And yeah, when you're stretching out, I've done a couple different stretching videos. You can watch them in my workout playlist, so you can go type in, well, you don't need to type, just go into the playlist section, select the exercise one, and then just go in there. You'll see a couple of them. I do a lot more of this. What's important about doing this is that, say you have my hand up there, don't drop your hand to hit your own foot. No need to do that. If you can't hit the hand, you can hit it. Same thing here with the stretch. Don't bend your knees just to go down all the way. It's important to actually get good at stretching, so you can get all the way down 100%. Even if it's with boxing gloves and you can't actually grab your toes, it's the same concept. And this isn't even that heavy type of stretching you do when you want to get more flexible. This is the easy type of stretching you do just to warm up. So that's way easier, way less time. If you want to get more flexible, you have to get a little more specific. So this is something we call the crescent kick stretch. I'm not sure if other martial arts would really do something like this if they don't have a crescent kick in it. But what you're doing is that you're taking your foot, you're going up and around, kind of in the biggest, roundest shape you can get it. And it kind of mimics the trajectory of a crescent kick in Taekwondo. But it's also just super important for stretching out. So even if I'm not doing any crescent kicks, I'll do that. And then, again, thanks for watching. It's been about like 21, almost 22 minutes of just training. I'm glad you guys watched. I hope you learned a couple different tips from here. And again, drop in the comments, what type of format would you like to see for a similar video like this in the future? Because I'm going to keep on making them. So just let me know. If you prefer to see the stretching in the first, let me know. Sometimes I like to stretch in the beginning. Sometimes I'll also stretch at the ends too. Just kind of helps it out. So anyways, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.